Words are about to be spoken on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, brought to you by the Ad Free Shows, Podcast Heat, and Wrestling According to Alba Networks. I'm John Alba. That's the broken one, the woken one, the spoken one himself, Mr. Matt Hardy. What's going on, man? It is another week here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy.
It is. It is another week. We are closing in on 3 years. It's a beautiful thing. I had meant to tell you last week in Providence, Rhode Island, quite a few people came through. We were very busy during the day, but a lot of people came through that said they were very loyal and dedicated podcast listeners. That they really enjoy the podcast, which was very, very cool.
I love to hear that. This is episode 150 of the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. 150 episodes, Matt. That's pretty wild to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, that's wild. 150. We're 6 away, right, from getting there.
Yes. I think I mentioned this to you. I didn't say this on air because it hadn't happened yet, but I was Ubering from Jersey City into New York City last week, and I got in the Uber and I heard my own voice, and I'm like, what is this? And then I realized that my Uber driver was listening to our Ask Matt episode from last week's podcast.
That's fantastic.
I thought that was pretty cool, all things considered. We answered some good questions last week. What did you think of our episode?
I did. I enjoyed it. Ask Matts are always fun. There's always a lot of creative, real thought-provoking questions that come through, and last week was no different. So what happened when you revealed yourself to the driver and he realized who you were?
Oh, he freaked out, and then I was in for 25 minutes of questions about the Hardy Boys. So
what were the top questions?
Is Jeff as crazy as he, seems to be as in how he is as a daredevil? Is he easygoing? They asked, is Matt the brains behind the operation? I said, yeah, man, you're confirming your own beliefs here with all these questions. But he wanted to know that you guys were the real deal and that you're great dudes. And I said they are the best. And they are very much the real deal. And I tell a lot of people that, Matt, because if you get a chance to meet the Hardys, however you can, whether it's a chance encounter at Target or if you buy tickets to, say, WrestleCade to check them out over at Night Outcade with the Hardys, you're going to want to do that because the Hardys make the time for all of their die-Hardy fans. They're going to be signing all day Saturday, November 30th at WrestleCade in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And then what's going down afterwards, my friend?
And then that night, it is a Night Outcade, a night out hanging with the Hardys. Myself and the man you are listening to, Mr. John Alba, we are going to be doing a live stage show of the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy podcast. It's going to be so much fun. And then following that, Jeff's going to tag in, as he always does for that hot tag, and he's going to have a little acoustic concert. It's going to be very, very fun, and it is an event you do not want to miss. One ticket for both acts.
Yeah, one ticket, 2 shows for the price of one. WrestleCade.com is where you get your tickets. Just go to the ticket section. I want to make clear, this event is a separate event from the WrestleCade convention. So if you plan on attending the WrestleCade convention, you can go ahead and do that. Get your autograph with the Hardys. Get in line early because it's going to be a long line, especially in Hardy country.
Yes.
And then after that, you head on over to the WrestleCade Super Show. That's going to be great. That's going to be awesome. And following that, around probably 9 o'clock or so, we're waiting on the final time. That's when you're going to get the Night Outcade with the Hardys, live Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, live Jeff Hardy concert. I saw you guys did a promo video for this on social media this past week. Jeff was holding the championship belt in front of his face, and then he did the quick reveal. It was shocking that it was him. And it was pretty great, Matt, and I can't wait. I love doing these shows. It really is. There's a lot of synergy between the two of them, too.
Yeah, there really is. It's great. Jeff and I, just going to bring this up, too. Like, we were talking about this last week whenever we did TNA in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and we rode together both days there and back because we did the post-show meet and greets, and we were obviously coming back late. His family, they came, but he went ahead and left, and he stayed with me, and I'm the driver of the team too. Not only am I the brains and the architect, I'm also the driver when it comes to it. I'm the wheelman of the Hardys. And as we were driving back the second, I were like, man, these last 2 nights, like, we both felt great. The crowd was just off the chart. it felt like we were wrestling in the year 2000 again. I mean, especially the night number 2, the crowd was so passionate. They were so into what we were doing, and we're really feeling good. And just our the way we're vibing together, the way we're getting along together, we're just, everything is pitch perfect right now.
That's so great, man. I love hearing that. It's great seeing you guys have this renaissance almost of sorts. As you're at age 50, Jeff, not that far behind you. You guys are kicking ass and taking names, and the TNA World Tag Team Champions. You'll be bringing those belts, I'd assume, to WrestleCade. So it's going to be a really cool opportunity to see the Hardys up close with the gold in person. So make sure you go over to WrestleCade.com, pick up your tickets right now for the Night Outcade with the Hardys. These live shows rule. They're so much fun. And it really is, it's a different palette, because the podcast and the concert, they go so well together, but they are two unique, different shows. Like, I always feel like we end up cracking up throughout both of these shows. Our podcast, man, they get wild.
Yeah, they do. Anything can happen in the extreme life of Matt Hardy, especially a live show. When we're live, pal, we're live.
We're live, pal. Yeah, and you never know who's going to show up, too. That's always something that's fun. The guest list for WrestleCade is crazy this year.
Yeah.
So we'll have to pick and choose and see if we can pry someone away to get them to come hang out with us that night. One guy who's going to be there, Matt, is someone who, as we tape this on Thursday, November 14th, he's celebrating his 25th anniversary of his WWE debut, and that's Kurt Angle. And we will do a Kurt episode in long form at some point. You know how highly I think of Kurt. I think he's one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. He changed the game, and you were there, Survivor Series 1999. Any memories you can share real quick about Kurt's debut and just the performer he'd become?
I remember when we were doing our training in the Funking Dojo that there were a lot of high expectations for Kurt, and he really excelled so quickly. It was crazy. I mean, he truly was an anomaly when it came to learning so fast. And we were very happy for him. We thought he was great. And whenever he debuted, we were pleasantly surprised at how great the reaction was, and at just how great he did. And it just continued to ascend from that point on. So yeah, Kurt was an amazing, one of a kind athlete.
Do you think Kurt has the greatest rookie year of anyone in wrestling history?
He may very well. I mean, that is not out of the realm of possibility. I just want to share one in the Funking Dojo. Whenever we would do our practice matches during the day, I had one of Kurt's first matches when he was there. And I was the first guy that put him in the corner and chopped him. And I'm like, dude, I'm here. And these guys are watching. I said, I gotta lay it in. And I remember I chopped the shit out of him, like a shotgun. And I came back, and he looked at me like kind of harsh the first time. The second time he's like, what the fuck? And you could tell he was very much like, what is this? Like, when I get punched in the face, it's not like this. And, like later, I think people just explain to him, like, well, the chops are just that. You chop someone, you have to make a loud sound. It hurts. It stings. It's a loud slap to the chest. But the first 2 times I did it, he was looking at me like he wanted to kill me. And I was like, brother, I'm working correctly here. I do know that.
As the old Joe Briscoe story goes, if he wanted to hook you, he would have had you hooked.
100%. Much like when I went over with Evander Holyfield, when he said, okay, yeah, we're back there in the back. He said, okay, he said, just, throw a few blows to kind of show me how it would go. And I do this. I said, oh, but it's cool when I do that. I won't come to your face or whatever. He said, that's cool. You can do whatever. Like, he knew within 30 seconds that I was not a professionally trained skilled boxer. He knew. We were there just fucking around for that, and that was the whole reason they wanted to do that. And they told me that going in, he knew.
Well, there you go. That's a great story too. We had a few people ask us about that actually recently on social media, because we just passed the anniversary of that with Holyfield. But we did cover that on a previous episode. I believe that might have been was that the MVP episode we covered that on? I think it might have.
I would imagine, yeah. Because there were a lot of interesting events that came out of that story and that booking.
We really got to get MVP on the podcast. He's crushing it right now with the Hurt Syndicate and what they're doing. I'll tell you what, I think they should turn them babyface and be some of the top guys in the company, get Swerve in there, and they should go against Moxley's crew. I'd love to see it. So we'll see what MV Pizzle's got in store. Speaking of AEW, our pal Sean Ross Sapp dropping the news right before we went on air. someone you know very well, Speedball Mike Bailey,
The ball of speed.
reportedly on his way over there. I know you weren't super familiar with Speedball before you got a chance to work with him in TNA, but leaving TNA, getting this opportunity seemingly in AEW, what thoughts come to your head about it?
I mean, I think he is an ideal fit for AEW, especially with their style, kind of the matches they are typically looking for to produce on their television. So I mean, he's going to do great out there. I have nothing but the greatest things to say about Mike Bailey. My time working with him had been a pleasure. He really gets it. He gets the idea of like classic wrestling and storytelling a lot better than I expected him to, because I knew he was a guy that did all these flashy, super cool, fancy moves and whatnot. He's a great athlete, but he's got a great mind on. He was really good at like implementing myself, him, and Trent Seven when we teamed up and we had this small storyline arc. He was really good about putting everybody's stuff in the right place, I thought, So big fan of Mike Bailey. And I think he's got a ton of potential and just a real sweetheart of a human being.
He's one of those guys who never has a bad match. Every single time he's out there, he absolutely crushes it. And his hybrid style is so fascinating. I think that really makes him unique and sets him apart. And, there are a lot of really great pro wrestlers in AEW, and I'm curious how he fits into the fold there. I almost would have liked to have seen him test the waters in NXT and seen how he would have done there, because he would have been one of the best pro wrestlers in NXT, period. And I think he would have been a huge asset for a lot of the younger talent there who are newer to the industry and could have learned a lot from him while he would have excelled. But, man, when that style calls you and you get a chance to go out there with Will Ospreay and Ricochet, when you're someone like Mike Bailey, that's got to be pretty hard to pass up.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen Mike get an opportunity at NXT too. I think he would have been good because he would have been so unique on that particular platform, especially with the way he works. The one concern I may have for him at AEW is because there are so many people that have these amazing styles and these high work rates. I just hope that he doesn't get lost in the shuffle with everyone else there while at AEW. I just hope they allow him to stand out in the way that the Speedball Mike Bailey really can't stand out.
Yeah, he's very unique. So hopefully, if he does end up in AEW, that he is showcased in a way that benefits him. Andrew Zarian, friend of the show as well, by the way, reporting that AEW is going to run some shows at the Hammerstein Ballroom, which I think is pretty cool. All things
we're competing against them whenever I'm doing House of Glory.
Yeah, that's right. You're doing House of Glory, which is awesome, by the way. The Hardys working House of Glory is super, super cool, and I love seeing that. But Hammerstein, that's a venue you've been really one of the last few remaining special wrestling venues. What can you tell people who are considering going out to something like that at either the Ring of Honor show or the AEW show they're taping there?
I mean, Hammerstein Ballroom is a very special place. I thought it was real cool. I remember from back in the day when they would do things when WWE was smaller and whatnot. But just the fact that it has been there, TNA, I had some great times there with TNA. Obviously, had some great times there with the Ring of Honor. It was one of my favorite memories ever is when we had just left TNA and we surprised the Young Bucks and we showed up and we beat them for the titles. That was there. Just the venue is just so rich in wrestling history, and it's a very intimate building. And a lot of times I think back to some of the ECW stuff because those fans were so passionate and so enthusiastic, and just that the intimacy of that venue and the way the crowd is like on top of the action. I feel like it just it creates the greatest atmosphere possible for pro wrestling.
I so wish you had been at that first ECW one night stand at Hammerstein. You were there in a way. Paul Heyman said, I got 2 words for you, Matt freaking Hardy, which of course 3 words, but alas, you did make a somewhat appearance there. Super cool. I love that they're running that venue, and it's a lot of Ring of Honor history.
I actually did you see is the announcement came out today that they are, because we were there, we signed at the Galaxy Con.
I was just going to bring that up to you. Yeah, AEW moved their Collision taping from December 7th. It was going to be at the Nationwide Arena in Columbus. They moved it to Galaxy Con, which I think is pretty cool.
It's going to be interesting. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, we talk about like WrestleCade. They got the shows that happen there. You guys are doing a TNA show at WrestleCade this year.
Right.
Why not because go figure, it'll probably be more or less about the same amount of people at the show either way. So put them at GalaxyCon where it's a more intimate environment and they're louder and they're feeding off each other rather than a big cavernous arena where you're getting 2,000 to 3,000 people. It seems like a no-brainer.
It is. And too, like, I even think for AEW, those scenarios are tough. Like, if you don't need to book those big buildings if you can't constantly or can't regularly, get them full or close to full, because I feel like it's one of those things. If you're in a 10,000, 11,000 seat venue and there's a couple thousand people there, then people kind of like look around like, oh, are we cool for being here? It's just weird when you're in a 2,000 seat building like we are for TNA, and the building's packed and everybody's on top of each other, they're going nuts. And that's how it's going to be for AEW too. I think it'll create a much better vibe for the audience and also the people that are wrestling in the ring as well.
It's why I love a good packed indie show, man. You get 500 people in a smaller building, a VFW hall, and those 500 people are going nuts the entire night.
Right.
That when you're a performer, that feels like you're out there with 15,000 people because it's just so intimate and lively. And two, as a performer, if you're in a big building and there's 2,000 to 3,000 people there, I got to imagine it's a little hard to sustain some of that adrenaline and psyching yourself up in a way that's similar to what it would be in a smaller, more intimate building.
I mean, it definitely plays into the motivation internally within anybody who's out there, depending on how hyped the crowd is. If you have a full house, and this is even if it's a smaller building, but the crowd is, white hot and they're going nuts and they're yelling and they're screaming and they're cheering and they're booing and they're going nuts. That makes a huge difference. That improves the quality of the match. That makes it feels like it improves your performance. It inspires you. It motivates you to work harder and to be even better. Helps you get into it even more. When you're at a place that has a lot of empty seats and a lot of it is tarped off or whatever else, it kind of messes with you a little bit. It makes it a little more tricky to have a great match.
Have you ever caught on to the tarped bit that Sean Ross Sapp and I had going for years?
Oh yeah, yes, I have caught on to your bit.
Yes.
I am privy to the bit.
So many people did not realize this was a bit. But I always find it hysterical when I see these wrestling engagement farming accounts that will post a picture of an arena 2 hours before the show starts with select few fans in the building, and maybe a few sections are tarped off by curtains. And, oh my God, AEW in the mud, WWE in the mud, everyone's in the mud. If you get enjoyment out of cherry picking things like that, I seriously recommend you reconsider what your priorities are. Why not enjoy the shows that are in front of you? Enjoy the talent that are performing in front of you. It seems like such a silly, petty thing to get upset about, Matt.
It is asinine. It's just so crazy. It really is. And it's one of those things too. It's become such a thing now online, on social media, especially, anywhere on the internet where you have these tribalistic wrestling fans. Best thing about social media, it gave everyone a voice. Worst thing about social media, it gave everyone a voice. And, those are the things you kind of have to deal with. Sometimes people are just out of control and they really do. They get off on saying these negative things. Like when people will comment on one of my posts that like has nothing to do with like people in general, or I couldn't be in any way throwing any kind of shade or making any kind of suggestion that has something to do with this, any kind of people specifically, and they come in and they throw some sort of insult in or whatever. I'm like, why do you take the time to do that? Like I don't watch or pay attention or keep up with something I don't like or something, I'm going to be negative. It's just so strange. The fact that people do that and, they get off on it it's mind blowing.
It's beyond crazy. But I will say, I've been really enjoying Blue Sky. I'm trying to get you over there. It's been some good wrestling conversation going on over there. I like
so what kind of wrestling conversation is going on there? There's a section.
So the way that Blue Sky is set up, that's a little different than Twitter. There are essentially, think of it as like trending topics that are actually hashtags, and they're called feeds. So if you're talking about wrestling, there's hashtag WrestleSky. And it's so far, because it's a decentralized platform, meaning it's not owned by anyone per se. You're not seeing the algorithm tilted one way towards negativity or one way towards positivity. You're getting very thorough, straightforward, reactionary conversation about the events going on. So it's not just wrestling. It can be about politics. It can be about baseball. It can be about basketball, whatever it is. And I really like it. I think they've done like 30 million. They're closing in on like 30 million new users in a 90-day span or something. I don't know. I've been digging it. I'm just saying. I'm over there right now. So I'm happy to rebuild from ground up. You know, I wasn't about the Zeter experience pretty early on.
Yeah, it's it'll always be Twitter to me, even though they've renamed it X. It's interesting, man. It's an interesting place, especially now that Elon has a new position. It's probably going to be a lot more focused on that and Elon's agenda.
Not all of us were able to maintain our verified status there, Matt Hardy. Not all of us were, though. You did get hacked like 5 times, so.
I got hacked. Eventually, they cleared me up and they put it back. It's because I had over 1 million followers. I guess that's what they did. Everyone with over 1 million followers was the deal.
Boy, look at you! Look at you! Is that how you measure? Never mind. Anyway, Matt, we have a very special topic that we're going to talk about today. We've done an episode on Eddie Guerrero before, but as we tape this, it's 19 years since his passing, and
right.
We're going to talk about the weekend that he passed and managing grief in a more general stance. And we'll watch your tribute match to him that you had with Carlito on the Eddie Guerrero tribute show, which will be nice to look back on. But before we can do any of that, you know what I got to ask? Please, my friend, hit us with that Matt Fact.
Matt Fact. Matt hasn't had a speeding ticket in 12 years.
Oh, okay. Little ballsy putting that out there into the ether, my friend.
Matt Fact. Matt is not superstitious.
Yeah.
I knew you were. I knew you were going to make that comment.
Maybe not, but I don't know. I got pulled over for the first time in years, maybe 3 weeks ago. I got out of it. I was very lucky to get out of it.
You got out?
I did get out of it. I did. I was driving and I had my GPS up, and my GPS like randomly crashed. So I was at a stoplight and I just re-pulled up the GPS to get it back on, back on the dashboard. And I guess there was a cop that saw me using my phone at the light and got pulled over. But I explained to him what happened and I got off with a warning. So
okay, all right, good deal.
What's the most egregious you got pulled over for in terms of speeding?
I've been lucky. There's been. I mean, when I was younger, I was a little more crazy. I think the worst ticket I've ever had was 70 and a 55, which isn't that bad.
Could be worse.
Yeah, for sure.
I got a speeding ticket one time that I had to go to court for. This was crazy. I got pulled over for going 38 and a 35.
And that's insane. Like, that shouldn't happen. Like, that's.
Of course it shouldn't.
I think we've talked about this, right? Like, you've told me this. Like,
I think I've told you this before. Yes.
3 miles an hour over is just, that's insanity.
It
makes no sense.
It was 1 a.m. I was coming home from a late Yankee game, and I got pulled over, and I had to go to court, and I lost in court, so that was great. But by the way, guys, House Hardy right now has got the bug running through it. So if we get if we got some kid run-ins this week, they're just creating a little TLC.
Everybody except me. That's how it goes here. Everybody gets sick except me.
That's because you were eating worms at 8 years old.
It's because I get up and sit in 37-degree weather for 8 minutes every morning. Because I walk around barefoot nonstop. It's because I'm a nasty ass country boy, Hebrew. My immune system's high. I have strong immunity.
Grew up eating medium well steaks, well done steaks, toughen you up.
Probably medium for my dad. My dad was more of a medium guy.
Okay, well, we're gonna put that to the test soon. More on that.
Yeah.
Very excited for that. All right, Matt, let's talk about Eddie. We did a very deep dive into Eddie's career and times in WWE that you can check out in our Eddie Guerrero tribute episode in the archives, extremehardy.com. But I want to talk about kind of the end of his run and that fateful weekend that would shock so many in the wrestling world and pop culture and everything beyond. So let's fast forward to 2005, late 2005. Eddie is on the verge of feuding for the World Heavyweight Championship over on SmackDown. He was already WWE champion. He was 38 years old. Where do you think Eddie sat in terms of the ladder and the pecking order in WWE and having Vince's ear at that point?
I mean, he was established as a guy, and Vince loved him because Vince loved the entertainment aspect behind him. I think Vince was, I think when the Radicals came over, Eddie by far and away was Vince's favorite just because of his personality, and even with Chris, I think Chris Jericho was looked at by Vince as someone who had a good personality, but I still think that Eddie even superseded what he saw in Chris, because I don't think Vince necessarily got Chris Jericho's sense of humor at first.
Well,
but Eddie's
crazy about that. Bruce Pritchard's been on the record, and he has said that the one they thought was going to be the breakout star was Perry Saturn.
Interesting. And who thought was going to be the breakout star?
Like the management thought was going to be the breakout star from them.
Which is wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. But I just do know that Vince was like, I remember seeing Vince talking about things with Eddie when he was on that run, when he was, going into the match to, face Brock and whatnot for the title, and there'd be little times where, Eddie was kind of like, this is kind of my idea, and I'm thinking about doing this and throw the title here, and then I drop or I do that. And you could just see Vince was just chuckling on the inside, and he found it so funny. And once again, it connected with his humor. so it really won Vince over. Vince was such a huge advocate for Eddie Guerrero at the end.
We are in the middle of tailgate season for football. I don't care if it's the NFL. I don't care if it's college football. I know you're out there. You're in the parking lots. You're eating good. You got the burgers. You got the buns. You got the chips. But do you have the whole body deodorant? Because maybe you should have that when you're sweating it out as your team is 3rd and 20 on their own 40-yard line and they're going for it and you're not exactly sure why. If you couldn't tell, I'm somewhat of a tortured New York Giants fan, but I know that even if Daniel Jones can't be an MVP, Mando's going to be an MVP. Mando is clinically proven 72-hour odor control, so it's perfect for long days at the game or at the bar watching the game. It's safe for the whole body, your pits, your package, your feet, and everywhere in between. Yes, even after those tailgate sprints to the restroom, or if it's a porta-john, I'm not sure what it is, but you're going to be in good condition because it stops odor before it starts. And Mando's available in 3 formats: invisible spray, solid stick, and yes, even invisible cream. And it comes in 4 cologne quality scents like bourbon leather, Mount Fuji, Pro Sport, and Clover Woods. Honestly, I like the bourbon leather. I kind of feel like Ron Burgundy, a little sophisticated when I'm out there wearing that. And with our special offer from Mando, they're going to take good care of you. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code and link. Use code HARDY at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Honestly, I believe that Mando is incredibly versatile in whatever way you want to utilize it. A lot of people are out there making sure you're part of the tailgate, enjoying the game. For me, as a sportscaster, I'm at the games in a totally different role where I might be at a stadium for 8-9 hours. I need to make sure if I'm in a suit, I've got whole body odor control, and Mando helps me do that. I love the deodorant wipes because the deodorant wipes I can take anywhere with me. I can burrow in a corner if I need to and utilize them to wipe the sweat off and be ready to make sure that I am on air ready to talk about the NFL game that I have just covered or the college football game that I have just covered. And I want to help you guys feel the same way, and so does Matt Hardy. See, Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers or to secure some last-minute stocking stuffers as well. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like the mini body wash or the deodorant wipes, and free shipping. And we've got the code to help you get hooked on your favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off the starter pack with our exclusive code, equating to over 40% off your starter pack. Just use code Hardy at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Don't let BO keep you on the bench. Smell better naked with Mando.
So where does Eddie sit in the locker room at that time? He's on SmackDown. Raw's the A show, but he's still being featured very prominently. Is he universally beloved at that point?
He is, but he was also one of those guys that are probably like, there's a lot of guys that you'll end up, kind of conduct themselves this way. They just, they want to dress in the locker room with the rest of the guys. They're just like one of the boys, as opposed to someone who's going to have their own dressing room, or someone who is going to dress by themselves or be isolated. He was just like one of the boys. He really was through and through.
We know Eddie at that time was obviously close with Chavo, close with Chris Benoit. Was there anyone else towards the end of Eddie's life that he was really close with in the locker room?
I mean, Benoit was his best friend. They've been through it all. They were training.
Ray, obviously, too.
Yeah. So they were the closest. Obviously, he was super close with Chavo being family, Chavo being his tag team partner, them having to run together. But Eddie was universally beloved, throughout all of the locker room, universally beloved.
He was supposed to win the World Heavyweight Championship from Batista, a guy who we'll probably do an episode on at some point too. Batista was the guy on SmackDown, and they ran a lot of that late summer, early fall with the two of them teaming together on and off, kind of frenemies sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Did you observe anything about the relationship between Dave and Eddie? Because when I think of the testimonials from the tributes to Eddie, Dave's really hit pretty hard compared to a lot of the others.
Yeah, Dave had a ton of respect and really looked up to Eddie as a mentor or role model, and I think he was pretty excited about this journey they were going on. Even though Dave had already entered that top level atmosphere, right? He was still a big believer in Eddie, and Eddie was a big mentor to him.
What made Eddie such a great person to be around in the locker room in that last year or so of his life once he won the championship and onward?
Eddie was very laid back. He was very humble. His humility was just off the charts. As great as he was, you never saw that. He had a great sense of humor. He loved to put smiles on faces. If he could crack a joke or do something funny to put a smile on a face, he always would. He was just a good guy through and through, someone who was always a pleasure to deal with every single day, especially once he got everything together in life. He was just constantly a pleasure to be around. You have some guys where you never know if you're going to get, the happy version of this guy or you're going to get the ill version of this guy. But like Eddie wasn't like that. Eddie just was always someone it was a pleasure to be around.
Was he someone that took a mentorship role in the locker room to others? Could people approach Eddie when he's 38 years old and sitting at the top of the card?
Yeah, both him and Benoit did. If there were guys who wanted to learn things, they would go to the ring, they would work with them, they would, work out with them, they would do squats over and over in the building. There's some guys that they just kind of had them following them around, almost like they were doing a dojo.
So they were, even if they were putting them through squats, they were mentoring them?
Yeah. Constantly. They felt like that was part of their obligation, I think, as performers. But both of those guys specifically, Benoit and Eddie, they wanted to do whatever they could to give back to the next people. And they would work very hands-on with each and every person.
Had Eddie curbed the stigma of being a smaller guy?
I think so. Once you work at the top and you beat some of the guys that he beat, and you win the title from Brock Lesnar, I think when that happens, you have definitely overcome the stigma of being looked at as a smaller guy or a cruiserweight.
Yeah, I think that he was going to be a top guy for the remainder of his career. Did you ever get any indication as to how much longer he probably would have wrestled?
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's one of those things where Eddie would do that sometimes, like Kurt Angle would do, though. Kurt Angle was real notorious for just like walking like an old man, like, oh God, it's just such a I can't do this for much longer. But then like he goes through the curtain, and then it's true, and Eddie would do that same thing. He'd kind of walk around, oh yeah, how are you? Oh yeah. But then he'd go out through the curtain and the red light would be on and he would open up and he'd turn to Latino Heat.
So he was, even in the last year or so of his life, he was pretty introverted behind the scenes.
No, I mean, he was friendly, but I'm just saying when you talk about how he was like physically, like,
He was a worker.
yeah. I mean, yeah. If I walk into the locker room, people are like, hey, how you doing? Like, yeah, I'm doing great, doing good, whatever. And I'm like not trying to. I swear to God, I thought when Shawn Michaels first came back, everybody's like, oh my God, how's it going? I said, I don't know. I'm hoping I can go through. I hoping I can get through it. I hope I can get through this match. When he made that big return, he's wearing the jeans or whatever. And we're like, man, I hope this can go good for him. Like, I hope he feels all right out there. But deep down, he knew he was great. And he was down there overselling things like that. So people would like, have a lot of sympathy towards him, and they wouldn't have high expectations for what he was going to do. Then he would go out there and kill it, So I did see this was something that happened over and over, but that's something that I don't do. I just say, you guys, just remember, like I've done a lot of crazy shit. So like, if I don't sign up for every single thing you suggest, this is why. I'll do what I can do that fits and is entertaining and works in the match for me, brother.
Do you remember your last conversation with Eddie? You had just moved back over to SmackDown after the ladder match with Edge on Raw. You were seemingly getting acclimated back into the equation there. Is there anything that pops in your head?
Trying to think of the last conversations, really.
I know it's hard to.
I just know there was one time whenever we did the deal where they kind of wanted they had invested in pushing me over there on SmackDown, and the whole situation with Undertaker happened where I wasn't supposed to be out in the ring, and this was right before, it was sometime right before this, and ultimately what happened, because it was right around the time that Eddie died, he was talking about trying to get to the next level, and he said, oh, just keep doing what you're doing. You have all the ability, you have all the potential, you have the size, you have everything you need to do. You just have to keep working hard. You can never give up. You have to be resilient. You have to do this. You just have to be resilient. You keep your chin up and keep moving forward regardless of what happens. And that may have been like the last advice that I had gotten from him. I don't know if that's my last conversation, but he was just still talking about trying to ascend to like the top of the card and be the champion, or be a guy that is going to, be able to put the brand on their back and carry it. About like, don't give up on that. Like, you can do it. You have the potential to. Don't give up.
The Emirates NBA Cup is here, and you can win big getting in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All 30 teams split into 6 groups every Tuesday and Friday, playing for the right to advance in the single elimination in-season tourney, culminating in the NBA Cup Championship in Vegas. This thing was a blast last year. This year it is back, and what a matchup we have Friday night. The Lakers -3.5 versus Wemby, and the San Antonio Spurs. You got King James, you got Wemby. You are getting a good one. DraftKings Sportsbook, send those odds up for us. If this is your first time, here's something special just for you. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. So you can score big with DraftKings Sportsbook. Every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code HARDY, that's code HARDY, for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-9777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/bball. It probably was right around that time because you had just moved over. His last match on November 11th is a Survivor Series qualifying match. And Survivor Series is where that all happened with you and Undertaker, correct?
Right. Yep.
So this was probably right around.
But because in all honesty, his death also caused an issue, like with some of the things that got changed with the teams that were going to be, and
Yes.
guys that were doing this and guys that were doing that. So like there were a few monkey wrenches thrown into that Survivor Series, which led to me being out there. And like they told me the complete opposite of that. And Vince said, well, have him just get out of there. Don't be anywhere near it. So, I was just like saying, okay, well, I'm, supposed to like, I'm supposed to step up and be this guy. So that's what I was trying to do mentally. But looking back in hindsight, it was the wrong decision.
Yeah. Well, Eddie does have that last match on November 11th. It's a qualifying match to be on the Survivor Series team for SmackDown. It's against Mr. Kennedy. And it's such classic Eddie. It ends with him tossing the chair to Mr. Kennedy. Referee doesn't see it. He falls backwards. Disqualification. Eddie's moving on to Survivor Series. Doesn't feel like there's a much more appropriate ending for his last match.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely
very true.
awesome that this is the last time that we see him. The circumstances are not, but it's so befitting of his character that this is how we see his in-ring run end.
But because it embodied everything he did as Eddie Guerrero, lie, cheat, and steal. You know what I mean? It really encapsulated.
Very much so. Now, he's moving on to Survivor Series. He allegedly was going to win the World Heavyweight Championship the next week. On SmackDown, there was going to be a triple threat match with him, Randy Orton, and Batista, which, again, as noted, he was set to win and become the World Heavyweight Champion. Unfortunately, that is not meant to be, because 2 days after this last match ends, WWE is in Minneapolis,
Well, I remember that.
and his nephew Chavo finds him unconscious. Eddie had been brushing his teeth, and he passed out. Chavo tries to resuscitate him. He's alive when he's discovered, but upon being brought to the hospital, he passes away. Autopsy revealed that he died of acute heart failure. He had heart disease, and it was unbeknownst to anyone at that time. Eddie, of course, had a lot of personal demons with addiction, and it would appear that some of those had some sort of effect on his body. But Eddie shockingly passes away. It's something that rocks the entire pro wrestling world, Matt. When do you remember first hearing about Eddie's passing, and who did it come from?
I remember whenever we arrived in the arena in Minneapolis, pulling into the Target Center. So if that's where we were then, whenever we pulled into the arena, that's when I learned that Eddie had passed away.
Who did you hear that from?
I'm not. It may have even been a Mark Carano. It may have been. So it was right upon entering the building and like walking in and checking in. I heard from someone, and they just said, "Oh, I don't know if you'd heard yet, but Eddie passed away last night." What? It just didn't seem real. It was just one of those. It was so shocking. It just didn't seem real.
Do you remember any other reactions from any other colleagues upon finding out?
Just tears, a lot of people crying, a lot of people upset. I mean, it's especially when you get some unexpected news like that. And I remember that was one of the first times I really thought, like, you never know, like tomorrow isn't guaranteed. And I do that too. I say it all the time now to people. I mean, I live like I try and live every day like I'm going to die tomorrow. You never know. Nothing is guaranteed. You need to live every day to the maximum. You need to try and optimize every day. The people that you love, Like, don't leave them without telling them you love them, because you never know if this is going to be the last time you see them or not. That was the first instance where I really felt like that, like, whoa, hold up, this guy was just wrestling, like doing the stuff like of a superior athlete does, and now he's passed away, and now he's died. Like, and obviously the Jay Briscoe thing that really set in, the Wyndham thing that set in, and now just like I never know. I make sure every time I tell my kids, every time I leave, it's mandatory that I have to hug them. I have to say I love you, and I just do. I try and treat everyone and live every day like it might be my last, because you hope it isn't, but you never know.
Do you remember Vince addressing the roster at all? Did that happen? Did it come from somebody else?
I believe he did. I'm pretty sure Vince did. Did he address the roster and just said that we're not doing any angles tonight, we're doing tribute shows. So that's what the next couple of days are going to be, and that's what we ended up doing.
Who do you remember taking the news the hardest?
I mean, I know Benoit was devastated. That was a big blow to him. That was a big blow to him mentally and emotionally, spiritually. I'm sure. I'm positive. I just remember a lot of the females. A lot of the females were very, very upset. I feel like a lot of people were just in shock. It was just hard to believe. A lot of people were almost in disbelief. It's just hard to believe that this is a guy who just been wrestling on a elite level, and now he's passed away.
Someone who wasn't there but was very close with him was Chris Jericho. Do you remember having any conversations with Chris ever about Eddie's passing?
Yeah, Jericho always would talk about how he missed him. I mean, they were very close. They were very close in WCW. They were close doing stuff before that, and then they were close in WWE. I mean, they were longtime homies, So yeah, it was definitely a big blow to Chris.
How did Ray and Chavo carry themselves? Because I mean, Chavo, the trauma that Chavo endured in that is it's unfathomable, and Ray is losing someone who's like a brother, and we know that Ray would receive a huge push out of everything that happened with Eddie and become world champion. But what do you remember that circumstance being like?
Yeah, I mean, because once again, those guys they're like brothers. I mean, their relationship is very much a brotherly relationship, their bond. So yeah, it was definitely I can't imagine, especially with Chavo, like when they say that, like walking in and finding your brother and being the first one that to find that he is dead, would be shocking. It would be shattering. So yeah, it had to be devastating to both of them because they were both so close to him.
How did, or I should ask, did people lean on one another to carry through grief? It's a really hard thing. Like, this isn't just a workplace. You guys are a traveling circus. You're on the road together with one another for years on end. So how did the roster collectively manage the grief of that?
It was, I don't know. It's I just feel like one of the things pro wrestlers probably do better than a lot of people do is whenever they have a tough scenario that they have to go out and entertain the crowd, they do. They suck it up, and they suck it up and they go, whether they're hurt, whether they're sad, whether they're emotionally distraught, they do. And I feel like everybody was motivated to suck it up and go out there and put on a good show in honor of Eddie. They probably felt like that's what Eddie would have wanted them to do, go out there and honor him in the best way possible.
Is there something therapeutic about being able to perform when you have heavy stuff on your head?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. It does feel it feels like a nice tribute. It feels like you're honoring someone in their memory. And I love when people do things that keep Eddie Guerrero in his memory alive. I love when people do things that keep Jay Briscoe in his memory alive. I love when people do things that keep Bray Wyatt in his, memory alive. That's important. And I do love that. It's also still tough though, because like we are people, and people have feelings. And sometimes when you think about this loss of a friend, someone who is almost, you've traveled with, you've worked with, you've been all around the world with, you've had all these crazy experiences with, and, for them to be gone and know that they're no longer going to be in your life. I mean, that's something that is challenging, but I don't know. For me, I had to learn how to deal with death early on with my mom, so it's just one of those things. Like, my mom passed away when I was 11, and Jeff was 8. So that was a hard blow. And you had to learn that, like, that person leaves, but like life goes on and you still have to do what is best for you and the people around you that you love. And, your circle of friends and family. And I feel like everyone there kind of reacted in a little bit of a different way, but it was very sad for Eddie. It was very sad for his family. And for me, just, I wanted to do what I could on that show and try and entertain the people and, like, respect and honor his memory and what he wanted us to do. And, like, still realize as a human being that, like, this is sad and we're always going to remember this guy, but, like, life still does go on. You can't quit and stop and give up.
You've had to be a part of far too many tribute shows for your colleagues over the years, far too many. And starting even with Raw as Owen, right? And into Eddie, and then everything that happened with Benoit, then Brody Lee. It's tragic, and I can't even imagine the mood.
Umaga,
right? I can't even imagine the mood amongst the locker room at these things. Some of the testimonials are just heartbreaking. And how does that work? Is it offered to you to go do one if you would like to? Are
Yes.
you asked to do it? How does that work?
Yeah, they were always offered. If someone wanted to say something, they would just say yes. Anyone is welcome to go say whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's just so challenging. I can't even imagine. And then to go out there and have to perform, WWE does 2 tribute shows to Eddie. They tape them on the same night, Raw and SmackDown. The Raw one was incredibly emotional, and it was live. And then SmackDown, equally so. And you wrestle on that show. We're going to watch that match in a minute. But one thing I always remember, man, from that SmackDown tribute show is Batista coming out with the lowrider parked out in the entranceway. Right. He talks and he leaves the world title on there for Eddie. It is just gutting to see. I mean, how challenging is that for you, Matt, to see, your friends, your own colleagues so raw and emotional like that?
I mean, it's just pure emotion. It's the epitome of emotion, real emotion, authentic emotion. And sometimes it's hard to watch because you see someone who's there at work and you see they're like, really venting all this authentic, genuine, heartfelt emotion, which is sad emotion because they have lost someone that is very important to them. But with that same thing being said, I also feel like for the viewers and possibly the performers, also cathartic in some ways too, because it helps you release and kind of get out some of that what you have built up inside of you, from being sad and being more.
I think one of the most amazing things about going to a game, a concert, an event, whatever it may be, is having that shared experience with the people around you. There's just nothing quite like it, honestly. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to that special event even easier than before. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I was just looking at New York Giants tickets. For some reason, I like to torture myself. And I clicked through the Game Time Picks selection. It's very easy. You open the app, you go to Game Time Picks, and right away popped up the super deal, which gave me $55 off lower bowl tickets. That is fantastic for an NFL game. All you have to do is select it. Your tickets pop right up. You can check out almost immediately, plus with a view from your seat to know exactly how good that view is going to be. And 1, 2, 3, you are there, headed to MetLife Stadium or whatever stadium you choose to go to attend whatever event you go to. Speaking of that view from your seat, I absolutely love the view from your seat feature because a lot of times you're going in blind when you're going to a show. Sometimes you've never been to the venue before. Sometimes the venue seating has changed from the last event you went to. So view from your seat allows you to get an actual picture of what is ahead and what you can look forward to when you arrive at your seat. And with their lowest price guarantee, Game Time's going to credit you 110% of the difference if you find pricing elsewhere that suits you better. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry with Game Time's ticket coverage. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Use the Game Time Picks, curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and anything else. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code HARDY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code HARDY. That's HARDY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Well, Matt, as I said, you had a chance to wrestle on the SmackDown Tribute show. You were facing Carlito here. If anyone wants to pull up Peacock, you can head on over and head to the Eddie Tribute episode, and they're coming out of break right to Matt's entrance. We're going to watch his entrance here. And we're going to start that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Begin. So are you asked to wrestle if you want to wrestle? Is it said, hey, you're going to wrestle? How'd that all happen?
Once again, they said, if you don't feel comfortable wrestling, let us know. And if you are comfortable, then we'll put together a card with the people that are comfortable.
There you are, making your entrance, going past the lowrider. You're wearing an I'm Your Poppy shirt. I mean, it looks heavy on your face, man.
Yeah, it was. It was a long day. You know, we were there that morning at 11 a.m. noon. Just heard the news, and there was a lot of heartbreak in that locker room that day.
So you're facing Carlito. Is that just a match that's just thrown out there by someone backstage? Says, let's have Matt Hardy and Carlito. They're both willing to perform. Did you guys have a pick of who you wanted to face? Because they kind of threw storylines out the window for.
They did. They just said, out of respect for, and they typically do this when they do his tribute shows. Out of respect for on this day, Eddie. You know, we're not going to do any storylines. We're just doing straightforward matches just to entertain the audience in honor of Eddie.
So you just find out you're facing Carlito, sort of thing?
Yes. It was not one of our decisions. It's just who we were paired with.
What do you think about Carlito at this time?
Carlito was so talented at this time, but he also was a little lackadaisical too. You know, I think he kind of got that rep a little bit here too, that I didn't try super hard or whatever else. He's like a guy that just is so natural when it comes to pro wrestling, and also just being born in wrestling, everything he did in Puerto Rico. He's gifted, man. He is so good. And especially, you know, when you get a when you have a Carlito that has his head screwed on straight and is like motivated and focused and driven to be good, like he has all the ability in the world.
So what's the direction here? Is it, let's work a house show match because it's just for the fans? Are you working a TV match with purpose? How does that construct come?
We were just going to go out here and just have a good solid match at the end of the day. You know, there were no storylines involved. We were just going to go out, and I was going to be the good guy, and he is obviously slotted in the role of the bad guy, and we're just going to go out and try and have an entertaining match.
What do you remember the crowd being like that night?
The crowd was the crowd was sad. They were subdued. There were some times where they got excited for things, but I mean, it's just that's a lot of heavy info to hit a crowd with too. You know, knowing you're having a tribute show for Eddie Guerrero, legit one of the most popular wrestlers at that time. a guy who was on an incredible run, and when they know they're having a tribute show and this guy's gone, they're not going to see him anymore. That's something that subdues a crowd pretty quickly.
In the Heat here, Matt Hardy doing some selling in the corner.
Yeah, and I think they just wanted all these matches to be just pretty straightforward. It was probably across the board. Good guys won every match. It was just basic 101 wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, this very much kind of feels like a house show match that the babyface is going to make the comeback on, send everyone home happy, sort of thing.
And it's also too it's so funny. Even when you look at that, like kind of the styles of the matches have changed a lot, especially just a straight match 101. They look a lot different in 2024 than they did in 2006, right? Or 2005. Wait, it was 2005.
Yeah.
Yes, in 2005. But the deal is too, man. Just they want us just to go out and have a good solid match, and that's what everybody was striving to do.
Yeah, but a match like this, as simplistic as it may be, it's still very easily digestible, and you can follow it extremely simply and easily. Like, it's not a challenge. And I think it's stimulating enough too, especially for a more casual audience sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, we were happy with it afterwards.
You think of Carlito stealing your pose there?
That's such a I don't know. I just the fact that we did the deal where I pick up the boot and he eats it is too funny. I'm okay with him. He can have my pose. He can have it for right now.
He looks like a baby here, man.
He does, yeah.
See how old he was at the time, because I know he debuted very young.
He did.
Let's see. Carlito was.
You take a nice backdrop.
He does. He was 26 here.
26. Just a baby.
Cover, kick out. So when you're performing, Matt, you just got to kind of lock in. You got to put all the outside noise in the person. Yeah,
just lock in, no doubt.
Was there any talk of you doing a tribute to Eddie in the match?
I think they tried to keep the bigger tributes. I mean everybody probably did their own personal little tribute, but the bigger tributes, things that Eddie would do in a match, I think they kept those specific to the guys who worked closer with Eddie. You're going to see those from the Rey Mysterios, from the Chavos, from the Batistas.
Right. Makes sense.
Which is smart, which is the right way to do things.
It's got to be a nice honor, though, to be tabbed to go out there and perform on a tough show like this. Companies telling you they've got faith in you to go entertain the crowd and keep them up.
Right. I mean, it was. It's one of those things too, where just looking back in hindsight, I'm glad that I was on the show.
So we got a little callback to what he tried to do to you earlier. This time you hit the leg drop on him.
Here we go. Come right up into that twist.
Yeeted off. Back elbow. Looking for a suplex. Matt Hardy, though, says, not today.
The reversal.
Twist of fate out of nowhere.
There you have
2, 3. Matt Hardy wins.
And I think if I'm not mistaken, I get a little point into Eddie right here and maybe come out and kiss the car at the end. Just remember, honor him in my own way.
Sure. I know Eddie was someone you had a lot of respect for.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah.
Point to the skies. Love that, man. It's a classy tribute right there.
Yeah, that was it.
Classy tribute from Matt Hardy. And
those are tough, man. I remember the first tribute show that I remember being a part of this before we were even our contract was for Brian Pillman, Flying Brian. We were booked there as an extra on that day. And as crazy as this sounds, that we were on the stage right in the back whenever they had the guys go out and stand, which was wild. They just said, oh, everybody, talent, all talent, all talent. We just got in and they just kind of pushed everybody out. Wow. But yeah, that was the first one, and we were there, and that was before we were signed.
Part of too many, my friend. Part of too many. Thankfully, as the industry has gone smarter about taking care of our bodies, hopefully that gives a lot more longevity to people.
Yes,
but that's got to be tough around this time, man. People that you knew and loved were dropping left and right.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, and even sometimes it was the guys that you would never have expected, like an Owen Hart, a guy who took care of himself and straight up family man.
That was also an accident, but
yeah, I know. But I'm saying it just the fact that Owen ends up passing away. You know what I mean? However, fate may hold it. It was just crazy. Because I'll be honest, you have some guys that people are surprised that they're still alive now, that they're still ticking, that it's crazy that some people that people expected to be dead 20 years ago, are still alive. And then, you have some of the good ones that go, Owen Hart, a Joe Briscoe, a Brody Lee, you never know, man. Don't take any day of your life for granted, because no one is promised tomorrow.
I mean, you're someone who's been there too. You had your battles with addiction, and you get in a horrible car wreck, and you're granted the ability to live to see another day, and you take that and you turn it into a second lease on life and something positive. And I think that's very inspiring for a lot of people.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it is, because there are people out there that get in those struggles, that they get in those deep holes, and they're not sure they can get out from them. And it is nice. I mean, that happens a lot. And I hear people coming up to Jeff a lot now too. So it is nice when people come and they are able to speak to someone who has been through it before, and they can relate to them, and they can motivate them, and they can inspire them to keep their chin up and keep marching forward like a warrior. You can do this. You got to stay focused. You can do it, though.
Your brother's crushing it right now. He's crushing it. And that's such an inspiring sight. Yeah. Everyone will always ask. I was on the train recently with a WWE star who was just standing next to me. And you know who it is, but I want to put them out there. But we were talking, and he said, "Oh, how's Jeff doing?" He's like, "I saw an interview and he gave a really out there answer. Is he good?" I said, "Man, that's just Jeff being Jeff." I said, "He's great. Right. He's the rock star. He's truly the charismatic enigma, and he's doing great." I love seeing that.
I mean, it is, and it's just once again, just like Jeff has got his routine, and just so different. It's great to see. We'll do those signings, and we get back to the hotel at TNA, and there might be guys like down, if the restaurant is open later or whatever, they're hanging out, they're kind of doing whatever and having a drink or whatever. And you see Jeffy come through. "Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Have a good night." Straight up.
Have a good night.
But he's got it down. He's got it down to a science, and it's his routine, and he knows what he has to do to keep himself where he wants to be. So he does great with it.
You love to hear it. You love to hear it. And I love all those stories you shared here today. Thanks for opening up about all that. And I'd love for you to join us here on The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. AdvertiseWithHardy.com is the place to do that. Promote your business to the extreme. AdvertiseWithHardy.com. Get it out in front of thousands of listeners and viewers every single freaking extreme week. Because we have 150 episodes of archived content for you to check out.
150.
150. What was it they used to say at South Park? Chef's Family, tree fitty. We got a while until we go there. We got a while. But we are halfway to 300, which is pretty freaking cool.
Not bad. Not bad at all. Or as Eddie would say, better than nothing.
Better than nothing. There's nothing else to say than that, Matt Hardy. The words have been spoken. We'll see you guys next week right here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy.
Delete!
SaveWithConrad.com.
Eric Ward in Franklin, Tennessee. I first heard about Save with Conrad through a couple wrestling podcasts I listened to. 83 Weeks and What Happened When with Tony Schiavone, and I decided to reach out, and I'm so glad that I did. It was an absolute fabulous process. I was in a transition mode, recently sold a home, and I was looking for a mortgage on a new home purchase. And Diana and the team at Supreme Lending was there to help me out. They were absolutely fabulous to work with. They were knowledgeable, responsive, and made the process incredibly smooth. And I'll tell you this, the online portal was an absolute game changer. It provided regular updates at every step, giving me full visibility into where we were at in the process. And on closing day, everything moved so fast that even my real estate agent was shocked. I'm telling you, I couldn't have been happier with the experience and would highly recommend Save with Conrad to anyone looking for a seamless mortgage process. I'm Eric Ward from Franklin, Tennessee, and I got into my dream home with SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender.
SaveWithConrad.com.